Assalamu alaikum. It's my privilege and honor to introduce our next speaker, Congresswoman from 35th District of California, a courageous and outspoken leader, Maxine.
Assalamu alaikum. I am so delighted to be here this afternoon, and I'm very thankful for the Council of Pakistan American Affairs in collaboration with the Islamic Society of Orange County for bringing us all together in this most important town hall meeting. And I'm very pleased that I'm accompanied by my husband today. I was able to encourage him not to play golf, but to come and learn about Ambassador Williams. Thank you very much. You're applauding him. We'll keep him coming. I am so pleased to be here with such an impressive panel to talk about the American Constitution and Sharia. I'm very pleased that Andre Barati Jr., United States Attorney, Southern California, is here. As a member of Congress working in the federal government, it is so important for me to know and understand what is happening in the federal government on this issue. And we just heard from him today, and again, I'm pleased that he's here. I'm very, very pleased to be here with Dr. Siddiqui, highly respected leader in the Muslim community, and I think we all learn when we have the opportunity to hear from someone of his stature. Of course, Chief Michael Downing, LAPD, is to be commended for the leadership that he's taking on these issues, but no one can match Sheriff Lee Baca, because Sheriff Lee Baca a leader, has taken on the role of leadership in dealing with these issues in ways that no one else has done. And I want you to know he's inspired me an awful lot. It's okay to give him another round of applause. I was reminded by Rafiq Masood, the Consul General of Pakistan, that upon her coming to California, that I was one of the first persons that she met when we attended a banquet together. Thank you very much. I'm so glad. I'm so pleased to be here with Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, my colleague, who too has been involved in these issues for quite some time. I understand that Congresswoman Judy Chu will be here soon, and perhaps John Chang, California State Controller. And I mention all of these names because I want you to know there is growing support among elected officials at all levels on this issue. And you need to know that the congressional candidate for this area is here today, Mr. Lowenthal. Where are you? There he is right there. Now, I have to thank Anand Khan, the President of the Council of Pakistan American Affairs, for the invitation. I thank him along with the Islamic Society of Orange County and everybody on the board who's been involved in putting this town hall together. Over the last year, and due to the focus of House Republicans on so-called Muslim radicalization, we have seen politicians and pundits attacking the Islamic faith as a security threat to the United States. Across the country, these people are exploiting fear and trying to convince state legislatures that the steady adoption of Sharia tenets is a strategy extremists are using to transform the United States into an Islamic country. The scare tactics are working in at least 13 states where lawmakers are now considering the adoption of legislation forbidding Sharia. A bill in the Tennessee State Senate, for example, would make adherence to Sharia punishable by 15 years in jail, and one of the nation's Republican presidential candidates, Newt Gingrich, has called for a federal law that says Sharia law cannot be recognized by any court in the United States. Now, those of you who know me know that I call names, and I tell it like it is, and so I want you to know who these people are. In addition to the state attacks, the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, Congressman Peter King, has vowed to continue his controversial radicalization hearings, specifically focusing on Muslim Americans. While it is a challenge for lawmakers to strike the right balance in protecting both liberty and security, Chairman King's and other Republicans' disrespectful approach to thwarting extremism is contrary to American values and actually threatens national security. Effective national security policy must not unfairly target or single out any one community. In place of misguided techniques that focus on racial profiling, we need to increase understanding and engagement with Muslim American communities to keep the entire country safe and secure. Understanding domestic terrorism is a legitimate concern for Congress, and we all have to be alert to violent extremism. However, these concerns must be measured against our Constitution and the civil rights protections and religious freedom it affords all Americans. And that is why I have supported HR, that is House Resolution 3618, entitled End the Racial Profiling Act. If enacted, this bill would prohibit any law enforcement official from engaging in racial profiling. The legislation would further require law enforcement agencies to maintain adequate policies and procedures to eliminate racial profiling. It is irresponsible to target Muslim community and hold them accountable for the violent acts of a few. As we all know, individuals from many different communities and faiths have used religion and political ideology to justify violence. When we consider the Ku Klux Klan, the Oklahoma City bombing, James Bond Bruins, violent shootings at the Holocaust Museum, bombings at Planned Parenthood clinics, and domestic military militias, we know that violence can emerge from many different types of communities. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, hate groups in the U.S. now number more than 1,000, an all-time high, and the threat of domestic terrorism from elements from the radical right is very real and growing. Did Congress focus on the ethnic group or particular religion associated with these incidents as a matter of public policy? Of course not. I know that the Muslim American community across this country is actively working with law enforcement officials, from dialogue with Attorney General Eric Holder to community meetings with local police officers in Minneapolis. Recently, tips from the Muslim American community have helped to foil 2 domestic terror plots, including the case of the Times Square bomber and the Northern Virginia 5. Law enforcement officials depend on these kinds of relationships, and we should strengthen them. A recent report from the Muslim Public Affairs Council stated that information provided by Muslim Americans has helped foil 7 of the last 11 domestic terror plots and 40% of all plots since 9/11. A 2011 study from Duke University Triangle Center on Terrorism reiterated that 40% of domestic terror plots have been prevented with the aid and the help of the Muslim American community. So what are we talking about here? The Muslim Public Affairs Council, utilizing information provided by the Congressional Research Service, the Heritage Foundation, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, reports there have been 77 total terror plots by domestic, non-Muslim perpetrators since 9/11. According to Impact, evidence clearly indicates a general rise in violent extremism across all ideologies. Considering these statistics, it doesn't make sense for federal and local law enforcement officials to racially profile or treat Muslim Americans unfairly. We must foster and strengthen relationships with Muslim American communities that, like many other communities, care about the safety and security of our country. This cooperation with law enforcement must be rooted in trust, and state and local officials must be leaders in cultivating relationships, various ethnic, cultural and religious communities. Once again, I sincerely appreciate the invitation to join you today, and I look forward to a robust discussion and dialogue with our community stakeholders. As I close, I want to share with you some of the articles. I keep up with all of the news clips on this subject. I want to tell you about Rabbi Jerry Serrata, Executive Director of Clergy Beyond Borders, and what he said. Rabbi Jerry Serrata, Executive Director of Clergy Beyond Borders, seemed to take a shot at former Speaker Newt Gingrich when he said that taking aim at would hurt American exceptionalism. What makes American exceptional, says Serrata, is that America welcomes all religious minorities. There are forms of democracy around the world, but this particular one has been very welcoming to religious minorities, and that's something that's very important, Serrata said. The idea of any legislation that sets out a particular religious group for discrimination, in our view, violates the Establishment Clause of the Constitution of the United States, and it is also a dangerous, if not familiar, piece of American history, and we're not going back. In closing, I want to quote Daniel Mock, Director of the American Civil Liberties Union's program on freedom of religion and belief. This is what he said. He said it was important to recognize what's really going on these anti-Sharia laws. They are motivated by anti-Muslim bigotry, plain and simple. Sharia equals